Well, as luck would have it, I was in another meeting that had a panel of recruiters. These are all corporate recruiters, so I thought I would share the questions and the answers with you. The first question that they talked about was a cover letter. And one person said, no, don't bother, I don't read them. Another said, well, it might be helpful to clarify and fill any gaps in your resume. It might help us understand how you would fill the role. Another said that this brings a layer to who you are and what you bring to the position, and it could be a differentiator in the process, and as things get a little bit more tight in the market, that could be useful. One person said they like to see bullets in the cover letter, and that the manager might like to see it. So these, again, were all people in HR. And if you're a creative person and writing is part of it, then including a link or including some samples could be a good idea. Another question was, is it appropriate to ask HR for feedback when you're one of the last two candidates? And the people all said definitely ask for feedback, and it didn't really matter if you were one of the finalists or not. Some organizations will give feedback and some won't. It appears that of the 4 that were involved today, most of them would give some feedback, and they said it is much easier to give feedback, or more likely to get feedback, if you have developed some kind of relationship with the human resource person or the manager or somebody else in that process. Another question was, is it ethical to apply for a job if I'm going to be having knee surgery? And they all said absolutely. Apply for it, interview for it, go through the process, and when you come to the final stage of your offer and when you're going to start, that's when, if you have your surgery still coming, that you can tell them that you are not available a certain date. Another question had to do with best practices for follow-up. So the person said, if you haven't heard back 2 or 3 times, within 2 or 3 times, I didn't understand what that meant, so I don't know if they meant 2 or 3 weeks. They never clarified what that meant. And that person went on to say that sometimes people just don't get their follow-up done. They try to make it a practice and get it done. She said to go to the hiring manager if you don't hear, and say something like, or text something like, is everything okay? I haven't been hearing anything. Another person said that once a week follow-up would be appropriate, and that there might be some comments they could share with you, maybe the status or the situation got delayed. Some of the HR people can have 20 to 30 requisitions going at any point in time, so they can get overwhelmed. Here's a little more script to use in your follow-up. Say something like this: I'm still very interested. I appreciate having me come in, and they said to keep your follow-up short and sweet. Another question was about ATS and how to get noticed, and they said apply directly online, use the system, and if you have an additional way of being noticed, that is your best bet. So if you can phone them or connect with LinkedIn or have someone that you know talk to them, bring your resume in or something like that, that's the best approach. If you do connect up on LinkedIn, say something about how you applied, you saw the post, you're very interested in the position, and you would like to know more. And possibly then you can get some dialogue going. Another person said networking is the key. Make a connection before you apply, if possible, with someone that you know in the company. And networking is huge to getting connected and getting your resume lifted to the top. Another person said be sure you put your resume in a PDF. Another said as well that networking is how you get into the top 10% of the resumes that are being considered. It was suggested to apply as soon as the job posting shows up, or as soon as possible, because the sooner is the better. And it was said also that getting into the first round of reviews is the preferential spot to be in. Any follow-up, making it meaningful and authentic. Again, network before or after you apply, but the consensus was if you can connect up with somebody and know you're networking ahead of applying, that's the way to do it. Also, read articles and get yourself prepared for your interview. Being an industry expert is nice, and more importantly are the hard skills of the job description. So find out what's going on and do your research on the industry and the company. Another person said, do not use a functional resume. And in your resume, call out things that are transferable. One person mentioned they like bullets at the top of the resume, and for those bullets to be the transferable skills. Also talk about what you are passionate about. If there's a certain industry or anything like that that you're really excited about, use that. And this might be a good place to use a cover letter to explain that. There was a question about compensation and when do you talk about money. So the consensus was to do that sooner rather than later and bring it up early. Some said that they have that conversation in their first phone call. Somebody also said that it is illegal to ask anyone what they are making. However, they can ask you what your requirements are. And one comment was, don't make it a relationship block, make it a relationship builder. It suggested that you know your number, and if you give a range, make sure that the bottom number is something you're going to be comfortable with, because if they come back at the bottom number and you gave them that range, you need to be able to be comfortable with that and find it acceptable. One comment was, speak your truth, just get that number out there. And if you are willing to take less compensation for a position, think through what your answer is. What makes you willing to step back? And an answer might be saying something like, what's important to me is working in the field that I'm passionate about, and that explains why you're willing to do something for a little bit less. The question was also, how do you dress in a video interview? What's appropriate? And one person said, dress in your best suit from the waist up. Another one said, make sure your surroundings are professional and there's not a lot of distracting things like some kind of a rock star poster or something like that. And put your best foot forward. Someone said, wear at least a dress shirt. And another said that it depends on the industry. And then how about references? Well, it was suggested that you have 3 to 5 professional references, and that would be people that are past or current, and managers, colleagues, people that know your work ethic, that know how you meet timelines and how you perform in your position. Also, it's a good idea to notify your references and let them know that they could be contacted. In fact, one idea is to go over the job posting or email it to the person that's a reference, give them a phone call, and then prep them on the role, possibly even talking to them about how you fit into that role and what you think some of your key skills are that would be of interest. Another question had to do with using LinkedIn. One of the recruiters said that she takes applications from LinkedIn, and if you do contact her, be excited, say that you just applied, and she's more likely to look at your application than the other ones that come in. Be concise and reasonable and professional in your communication. Another one said that she does a lot of sourcing on LinkedIn messages, and please reply, because there are some people that don't reply, and she finds that particularly annoying. She said something I didn't understand. It's something about declining a message or something, and then if you decline one, then a recruiter can no longer send you anything. I don't know what that's all about. If you are connecting on LinkedIn, keep it simple and say, I know there might not be anything right now. I would like to connect so that I know who you are for any future opportunities. Tell the recruiter why you want to connect, how you met, if there's some connection that introduced the two of you. Be authentic and give an introduction. There was a question about, do you want to be first or last in the interview process? And One comment was, you might not have any choice. Just go to the interview when they tell you. And be prepared in your interview. The one person does a lot of mock interviews, and that's one of the biggest complaints, is that people are not prepared. They don't have answers to the questions. So make sure that you practice verbally and not just reading things or doing it in your head, and to look up behavioral interview questions for various roles so that you get the questions that are relevant for the position that you are looking for. One person said they think it's better to interview early because then if you stand out, everybody else is compared to you. And somebody said, just show up and be authentic, do your research on the company, know your why, be expressive, and that it's okay to be nervous, and even tell them if you are nervous. And if you need a minute to think of an answer to a question, say that, and say something like, I need a minute to think of a good answer or my answer for that great question you just asked me. Also, they said it was okay to ask the interviewer to rephrase a question. A couple of other comments to wrap up. Smile, enjoy the moment, and remember, it's a conversation.